Welcome to our podcast.
It's not prod.
I can't.
It's a pod.
I think I need to speak language mythologies right about now.
Let's try that one again.
Hello, SL peeps. Welcome to True Confessions with Lisa and Sarah. Okay, can start confessing now. This is so cheesy.
Well, hi, Lisa.
Hi, Sarah.
How the heck are you today?
Awesome.
Great. I like that attitude. For being here on a Saturday, you sound pretty chipper.
Well, you know, I always like to bring my A game
You
to
do.
the confessional.
As you should. And we've actually got a pretty exciting reason to be here on a Saturday. Do share.
Well, I would like to introduce the one, the only, the very, very, very sexiest of all sexy Kansas City transplant here in the confessional, Jennie Bjorem.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, now you are live. Sometimes we've had other guests, but they come in virtually. You
Okay.
are actually in the confessional.
I'm actually in the hot box.
It is hot. I'm so mean. I turned the air off because
That's
it
okay.
sounded noisy.
We didn't want to sound like we were on an airplane.
Exactly right. We like production quality is actually not one of our top priorities here in the confessional for this podcast. However, that being said, we do want it to sound, somewhat nice and clear, and it was sounding a little noisy. So we're going to be in here sweating just for your listening pleasure. But anyway, we're so excited to have you, Jennie. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you guys for flying me out here to the hot box city.
I know.
It's as hot in here as it is outside.
It's worse.
It's like
outside.
108,
It's actually,
right?
I feel like it's worse in here than
Okay.
it is outside.
It might be, and
right
I
now.
apologize for that. I know Lisa and I were talking, and we were like, we are so mean. If we were good friends, we would have brought you out in like December when it's beautiful.
But people need this content now.
We need it now.
Yeah, we couldn't wait.
It's important.
Right, and your schedule is busy.
It's very busy, yeah.
And
but
so-
I get to see you guys at ASHA
see
in
you.
Boston, and it'll be cooler there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not, we didn't fly you just out for the confessional, or else Meredith Harold's going to be super offended.
Yeah. Don't offend Meredith.
So what are you doing here, really? Why are you in the AZ?
I am in the AZ to help work on your content for apraxia for SLP Toolkit.
It's going to be so awesome.
I know. It's
Can
going
we
to be so
tell
much
you how
fun.
grateful we are that you were willing to come and work on this project with us?
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. It's been tons of fun.
Good.
Well, and
Yeah.
so much learning, because even the process of creating this content, I said this morning I woke up and I felt like I got hit by a bus because it feels like we've been at an apraxia conference.
Yep.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad you guys feel like you're learning some stuff.
Oh,
and
my
we
gosh.
get some shenanigans mixed in,
Always.
Always, yep,
You know,
that's our MO.
which makes it fun.
Yeah, we've said this many a times, but we live by the idea of work hard, play hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jennie hypnotized me earlier today.
I did with my crystal.
Yeah,
Now, are you snapped out of it, or are you going to just say whatever she wants you to say?
I don't know.
I'm very sexy.
Jennie is very, very sexy.
Okay. So still at work. We're still...
Jennie, I will give you all my money.
And that is a great example of prosody issues. Sounding like a robot.
Right. Seriously, our heads are full of information. I have learned more about apraxia in the last 2 days we've spent with you than I have learned in the last 12 years of my profession.
Well, good. I love
Yeah.
it.
And so this is one of those areas that we talk about this all the time too, that in the schools we have to be a jack of all trades and really kind of learn how to master them all too, because we do not get the benefit of referring out when we have students on our caseload with needs that we aren't experts in.
Right.
So that being said, there's clearly a lot of roles and responsibilities of a school-based SLP, and we don't have the benefit of taking these specialty courses, like these intensive boot camp type courses so that we can gain more knowledge. And so we are hopefully, with this collaboration with you, going to give SLPs the tools they need to feel more confident.
How many kids with apraxia did you have on your caseload throughout the years? Like, how many kids did you personally work with, Sarah?
That's a good question. Here's the deal. Maybe I don't know.
That would be my answer.
Maybe
if
I
I
don't
look
know.
back at when I was in the schools, I don't know.
Yep.
I honestly don't know who had apraxia and who didn't.
Yep.
That's just me being flat out honest. I didn't diagnose my first kid with apraxia or treat my first kid with known apraxia until about 15 years ago. And yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I think I might have had one or two that actually came in with a diagnosis. So they probably received that, not probably, they did receive that outside of the schools. I think I've had maybe another 2 or 3 more that I was pretty convinced that's what it was, but not capable or competent to make that diagnosis.
Or even educated enough to know that we could make that diagnosis. That was one of my big takeaways from SLP Summit, because I think a lot of our diagnoses that float out in our field, we're not really sure what we can diagnose as SLPs. Obviously, receptive and expressive language disorders or articulation disorders, we're like, all right, we've got that. But then apraxia, because it's sort of more of a specialty sort of area.
It's just a speech term. Apraxia is just a speech term like articulation disorder or phonological disorder or language disorder. It's just a speech term. It's not a medical diagnosis. And I think that's where people get hung up. And that was my aha moment when Edith Strand said, apraxia is not a medical diagnosis. I was just like thrown back in my chair and my jaw was dropped open. And I was shocked.
Because you even thought it should be diagnosed by a medical
And that was in the
professional.
past year, guys. I mean, like, I don't know it all. I'm still learning. You know, this is, you know, I know a lot, I think.
You do, because we are witnesses to your wealth of knowledge on the topic. But we talked about this a lot too, and I really loved when you said, I don't know everything about this. I'm still learning.
Where I have my imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Oh, gosh. Well, and I think it's hard too, because in our field, we get these clients and we work with these kids by ourselves, and we're I'm in private practice, so I'm trying to educate families. I'm trying to educate their teachers. I'm trying to help support their speech therapists in the schools. So we try to work as one big team. And here I'm looked at as the specialist. And then I'm like, wow, do I really know what I'm talking about? Because I do know that I don't know what I don't know. Didn't we talk about that earlier?
Yeah.
Knowing, not knowing what you don't know, but maybe knowing that you don't know what you don't know.
But if you ever feel like you don't feel like that, then you might want to reassess where you're at in your life
Like if you
and
think
your
you know
career.
everything.
If you ever think you know it all, then either you're Bethany from the Real Housewives of New York, or you really, you should never, especially in the profession we're in, that we work with people. So there's always going to be somebody fresh that walks into your door that teaches you that you don't know it all. Or B, that we are evolving in research.
Absolutely.
And so we always are going to have to be continuing to educate ourselves, and we'll never know it all.
Right.
Ever.
I will say it was really comforting to hear you say that, because again, we can witness to your wealth of knowledge that you have just shared with us as we've been building out these tools. And so we know you are very, that boot camp you went to and all of the years of experience you've had make you very qualified to be working with these individuals. And so it's comforting for me to still hear you say that you've got a lot to learn still.
I do.
Yeah.
I still question myself sometimes, and that's kind of where that imposter syndrome comes in, is that you're like, man, am I really an imposter? Am I really an apraxia specialist? Do I really know what I'm doing? And it was fun because when I went to boot camp, I just went in acting like I knew well, that's not true. Okay, I'm going to confess something. So when we went to boot camp, they gave us a sheet and they wanted us to rate from 1 to 4, maybe, if I remember correctly. My brain was kind of fried at the end. But, how comfortable do you feel diagnosing apraxia? How comfortable do you feel treating apraxia? How comfortable do you feel in your overall knowledge of apraxia? So I think I was like 3, 4. 4. So I was like, I'll just take off one little point because I'm going to learn a little bit while I'm here. I raised my hand at the end. I was like, I need to go back and refill out the form I filled out the very first day, and I needed to put like 1s or maybe like a 2 on the treatment. And then now I can put the 3 and the 4 and the 4, because I was like, wow, I didn't know what I didn't know, and maybe I really didn't know what I didn't know.
And your mind was just blown.
And my mind was blown. And even with all my experience and all the training I've had, it still was this just really close-knit and really dug into the deep depths of apraxia. And it's crazy.
But that's ignorance. So ignorance is you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But that's part of our ethical responsibility, is that being a lifelong learner, we have to kind of have this basis of knowledge, but always continually seek learning. There's so many opportunities now where we're at in this day and age to learn that we need to continually seek that. And, you know, you're in a really cool, I think, perspective too, that you are working with kids with apraxia every single week. So you do have that foundation of, I mean, you're working it, you're living it, you're breathing it, and then you get to kind of like take that knowledge and then as you're learning things, apply it on top of that. But it is harder, I think, for a school-based SLP that maybe 2 times in your career, you've had that kid that you know about that has crossed your path.
And then what do you do about that?
But well,
because you got to have all this knowledge about all these different subjects. I have the ability to only take kids with apraxia onto my caseload. So I do 22 sessions of therapy a week, and 95% of those kids have apraxia.
But let's talk about that.
It's very, very specific. And so you can focus on it. But before we go on, though, I did want to back up for just a second because some people might not know what we're talking about with the boot camp. Will you explain to us just real quick what that was?
Oh, absolutely. So apraxiakids.org offers an apraxia boot camp every other year. It's a 4.5, 5-day camp, and this year it was held at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, and you have to apply and be accepted to the program. And then you go.
How many people?
There are 24.
24.
24 every other year.
Wow.
And you know what? School-based SLPs, I'm going to throw this out there at you because I'd love to see some of you guys go to this camp. Every single person that was at the apraxia boot camp this year was in private practice.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what I was saying is if I have one show up on my caseload and I'm like, crap, I need to go learn all the things right this second. I want to go to this boot camp. Like, that's like, what are the chances?
2 years from now.
2 years from now, and I'm going to get picked as one of the 24, but I need something right now. Yeah. So that's where Jennie comes in to this picture is I know you're kind of on a mission to help spread as much knowledge as you can to people about this topic. Your summit presentation was highly regarded as one of the best we've had. You packed in so much in 1 hour. And I know everybody was like, 1, mind blown, but 2, like really felt like, thank you for some practical solutions. And so that's just the beginning for you, right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
We're going to do this.
Yeah, because we all can't go to apraxia boot camp.
Nope.
Although I want to.
I know. It would be nice. But it's not realistic, obviously, for everybody. There's only 24 over 2 years. And time is an issue. And school-based SLPs specifically have a wide range of things they treat. I don't treat fluency. I don't treat dyslexia. I don't treat a whole lot of school-age language. I incorporate a little bit of it, but then I move my kids over to another private therapist that treats language because I really focus on the apraxia, or I might have to I know enough about AAC to be dangerous, but I'll bring in a ACC specialist to consult on AAC. So did I say ACC?
No,
AAC.
I think you said it.
But I think what our responsibility is, we don't have the luxury ever to pass a student on. You get what you get.
You don't.
And so you have whatever setting you're in, K-6, middle school,
I don't know
high
how
school.
you guys do. I don't know how you do it.
Well, I think
don't
the big
either.
thing is the big thing though is that it goes down to Sarah's favorite expression is be a problem solver. Yeah. If you just sit there and you stand still and you have either A, false confidence, or B, you just try to wing it and you don't do any research or digging into things or seeing what's out there, because there are so many resources out there. You can build your knowledge, I think. It's just a matter of
oh my gosh, in the day and age of technology.
Right. This is not 20 years ago.
Yeah.
No. Well, and the case that you are going to be so much more successful as a therapist at treating a child with apraxia correctly than winging it and just treating them in a phonological group with other kids, and then they're not going to make the progress because you're working on phonological errors, which they may present with phonological errors, but ultimately the goal is targeting movement and motor planning through movement. And so you're going to make so much faster progress if you see this child individually and maybe 15 minutes 3 times a week or 4 times a week, rather than trying to throw them into a group with 2 or 3 other phonological kids. And it's a totally different type of treatment.
You blew my mind when you said this. The goal is movement, not sounds. That First time I really ever thought about it that way. And of course I know this is
Yes,
a
the motor
motor
planning,
movement, a motor planning issue. I knew that.
And you have to have the sounds in order to work on the movement. So one of, we assess repertoire. We need to know what's in the kids' phonemic inventory. We need to know what sounds they can do, what sounds they're stimulable for. Stimulable. How do you say that word?
That's a
Stimulable for it. Blah, blah, blah. But
Watch
you know,
me. Stimulable.
what if we do it simultaneously?
Yeah.
Stimulable. Yeast roll.
There has been a lot of shenanigans over this last 2 days, as we said. And here's the best thing about working with Jennie. I'm just going to digress for a second. Is she is very good at giving real life examples and goals, and so then she makes us be like the client and do things with her. And so we've been working on our spontaneous imitation.
Simultaneous.
Well. That is what I meant.
Our goal
I was
is
testing you.
spontaneous.
I was
Our
testing
goal
you.
is spontaneous.
She really is an expert, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been so fun to have you model, and you're really good. And this is one thing I always struggle with when I'm trying to give examples of things. I can never think off the top of my head. And you're really good at like showing like this is what is likely to have happened. You know, I'm testing this word, and here's what the kid's going to do. And you've been like animated and showing us like with these videos and real life examples. And it has been, that's I think why we've learned so much this week. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, it's been awesome. But so I let's go into this a little bit. Is we don't have a 2-hour window for this show, but I want to talk about some key points that you just made. The one about we cannot treat them like they're phonological.
Right.
Right. We've got to treat the movement part of it.
Right.
Get the sound inventory so that you can build on that. And so that's where I wanted you to start off right there, because this was a really powerful point you made to us. We need to know what sounds they have.
And what syllable shapes.
There we go.
Yeah, so
Okay,
that we
get into
want to
that.
tax their motor system. So we want to find the spot at which it's difficult and that they're starting to break down, but yet we know that they can have success. So we're going to choose sounds that are in their repertoire. We're going to choose words that are meaningful to them. You know, some of my big words I love. No, now, go away.
I love the example you used in Summit with that one little girl you were teaching her, get out.
Get
right?
out.
Get out.
Yeah, get out. Yeah, for sure. Those are things I teach kids all the time. I had one little boy that was in my therapy sessions with his 2 older brothers, and his brothers would kind of come into his play, and the very first thing he would do is whine. And I'd say, there is no whining in my room. Let's tell them no. And so he looked up and he's like, I can tell them no. And I'm like, yes, you can. I was like, tell them no. And he looked at them and he goes, no. And both brothers stopped and looked at this, and he got an immediate reaction. Now tell them, go away. And so we worked on using those correct sounds, but within the movement sequence, go away. And when he told them to go away, I told his brothers that they had to move to the other side of the room. And when he told them that and they moved to the other side of the room, he literally beamed. He lit up. He giggled. He was so proud. He gave him power. So, I really encourage therapists when they're choosing target words is to really choose those power words. And a lot of times it might be a brother's or a sister's name. If the brother's name is Samuel and that kid doesn't have those sounds in his repertoire, maybe we could name that brother Bubba.
Yeah.
Let's call him Bubba. Or if grandma... they can't say grandma, well, can we call her Nana? Or can we call her, something more simplified? So that right now...
we're giving them function.
Yeah. So our big goals are function, success as quickly as possible, because what do our kids with apraxia have? They have self-esteem issues. They shut down. They have anxiety issues because they have failed, and failed. Wow. And nobody's really given them that opportunity to succeed, because a lot of times things are not being worked on correctly.
Right.
So, and that's no fault of anybody's, except for we just need to take a step up and educate ourselves and know that, it's really not that hard once you understand it. I just think it's just not an area of speech pathology that is understood. So it makes it more quirky or just kind of out there in a cloud. Like, I'm grasping
That's
for anything.
Exactly it. There's resources out there. I had some already. I've taken courses on this, but I always felt like I was just pulling, or the material's really dense to go through, or there's not a sequential, scope and sequence of instruction for me that made it real clear that I could get, and you are very good at getting to the meat of it and making those points that are really, really important.
But even before the therapy piece, I think it's important what she touched on too about for not just apraxia, but all students that we work with or kids that we work with. You've got to know that assessment piece. Where are they in this moment in time? Because if you're just kind of winging that treatment plan and winging that information and throwing goals on there that aren't meaningful for the student, then that's a huge piece. So getting that data that you need to find out where they are to then make those goals that are meaningful and then move into that treatment that connects into the goals. That's a huge piece. That's not just apraxia. I see that a lot with, other areas in our field.
So that was one of the main reasons we brought Jennie out. We wanted to build a informal screening tool to be able to get the data you need to feel confident that this is in fact a student with apraxia versus like a severe phonological processing delay, because the treatment is so different. And so we've got something really exciting that I think is going to give people a lot of great guidance. Not only did we come up with the subtests of things that are important to assess, but there's a lot of why statements, why these things are important, and how that information is going to help guide your treatment decisions.
I'm excited about the why statements. I think that was a really good idea, girls, because we don't want to do something and not know why we are doing it. We need to know why we're doing this. Why do I have to assess each word twice? Why is it important to do a non-speech oral motor exam? Why?
Right.
And that's what makes apraxia, not that we should have a why for everything, but I think in general people don't understand the why for apraxia. And that's okay, but that's why we're here to help.
Exactly right. Yeah. Tell me a little bit, so I know you've been working as a private clinician you own your own clinic, and specializing in apraxia for about 15 years?
So I would not say specializing in apraxia for 15 years. I think it's evolved. I'd say apraxia has probably been the past 6 to 7 years.
Okay.
And prior to that, it was early intervention altogether. So lots of experience with early intervention, birth to 3, parent education, and autism, and like early language development, like teaching parents how to deal with behavior and getting through behavior to help facilitate early language. So the kids that were delayed. So then it's kind of evolved from that into
what a perfect
apraxia.
evolution.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And the cool thing about apraxia is that you don't need to have a diagnosis in order to treat apraxia. Actually, I can say that about anything. We don't need to have the diagnosis doesn't necessarily drive how we treat children. So we treat an individual child. Now the diagnosis gives us more information about how we might change things. But, if a kid comes to me and they look like they have a motor planning disorder, but they don't have a diagnosis of apraxia, well, I'm still going to treat it as if it were a motor planning disorder, because especially in very young children, we know that a motor planning approach works for them, whether they have phonological or just delayed speech or apraxia. So I pretty much treat it as if it were using a motor planning approach anyway for very young kids, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, if I've got kiddos coming in. And then once they evolve and I see that it's not apraxia, then I might treat it more like phonological, because then I'm seeing that that's going to work in that situation with that child. So
that's a huge point.
Yeah. And so I think, just being familiar and knowing what it is, especially if, let's say, even though I say you can diagnose apraxia as a school-based SLP, but you aren't allowed to do that because your school district says you can't. You still need to be aware and know what the signs are and have these red flags, and using SLP toolkits, screening procedures, knowing what to look at, what to assess, what are the top 8-10 things that we might see in children with apraxia, and consistently across the board, then you can take a motor-based planning approach to your
That's
therapy.
information.
In a school setting, apraxia is not an eligibility category. Speech language impairment is in Arizona. And I think, are those consistent eligibility categories?
Yeah.
I don't remember if that's state specific or if those are federal eligibility, but either way, you would look at the eligibility categories in your state, and it's based always an IEP is based on your needs.
Right.
That's where you develop your treatment plan. So it doesn't matter what the eligibility category is. It's going to be the kid's needs.
Yeah, so it could be an eligibility category, and then you could say that this child exhibits signs consistent with apraxia.
Well, even I thought it was fascinating. Didn't you, a statistic you threw out before we started the podcast was, didn't you say 70%?
I think it's close to 70% of kids with autism have apraxia. I don't want to quote it wrong, but I think that's correct.
Wow.
So think of that. Like if you have students currently with an eligibility of autism, and that doesn't mean,
You're very likely to have this.
right,
Yeah.
that you just,
You're way more likely to have apraxia than a child that doesn't have autism.
So you've got to know these signs so that you can use that information.
So you
to
can use
guide
that
the
correct
treatment.
treatment approach. Yep.
Right. Let's talk about prognosis. I think this is something I'm sure families always want to know. You've probably seen a wide range of severity over these last several years of treating children with apraxia. Obviously, I know we would never tell a parent, oh, this will take 2 years and 6 weeks.
Correct.
Right. But what's the outlook?
So the good thing is that we know how to treat apraxia. That's what we do know. But you have to take many things into consideration. You have to take into consideration if the child's getting the right treatment approach. You have to take into consideration how many times they're receiving therapy a week, how involved the family is, if there's comorbidity, what other type of disorders or issues the child may have that are impacting their learning, whether it be autism or Down syndrome or a cognitive disability or, whatever it may be that's impacting the child's learning. But, the nice thing is that kids can make progress. They really can make progress if they have the right treatment approach.
And early intervention, I'm assuming.
Early intervention's huge.
Is key.
When you've got a kiddo that comes to you and they're in 6th grade and they've gotten phonological therapy their whole life, and I diagnosed them with apraxia and they've never ever worked on prosody, ever. And the poor child is cognitively intact 100%, but has a hard time making friends because he sounds like a robot and he can't vary his vocal range from to That's it.
Right.
We can't go up and we can't go down. And then they sound like this all of the time, including speech errors. It's really hard.
What about, I know one of the characteristics is that intrusive schwa, and what is Sarah's prognosis with that? Because she is an intrusive schwa.
That's her new nickname.
Yeah.
Yes, I got named that a couple of days ago.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sarah.
she's an intrusive schwa.
But it's not intrusive. It's supposed to be there.
That's your opinion.
We could do this. Sarah.
There. Okay.
We could do Lisa.
No, I'm not intrusive.
And me.
That's a better example of an intrusive schwa than my name, Lisa.
Intrusive schwa is interesting. It kind of comes and goes, and got little kids that will say no forever, and they'll come in and be like, Mom's like, oh gosh, they're saying Noah. Yeah. And I'm like, we're just going to stop that right now. No. And then I just do a visual stop. So, it's a...
One thing you cannot
Sarah.
see, because we're on a podcast, and I wish this was a video in some ways, or I should have just videoed Jennie for the last 2 days. It's not just verbal modeling. Lot of tactile and visual cues.
When I touch
in your face.
Oh, in your face. Yes. And you've got signs for things, and you've got your beautiful visual cards, speech sound cues, and there is a lot happening, and you're high energy, and I imagine you go home and pass out after a day
my
of
poor
sessions.
kids. I go home. They're like, Libby, Mom, will you play with me? Nope.
That will be $85 an hour, Libby.
Yeah, it is hard. It's hard. But, it's so funny because I had a dad in with his son this past week, and his son is in 2nd grade. He's the same age as my daughter, Livy. And they've been getting a lot of therapy over the years, but have never received true, correct apraxia treatment. And he's making phenomenal progress. Dad and I was like, I am so impressed with his progress. And Dad's like, well, that's because he's with you. And I was like, well, that's a little much, but
But thank you.
You're like, but continue.
But continue on. Thank you so much for that. But I said, what? One of the things is that I've created a bond between this child and I, and he trusts me. He trusts that I'm going to help him. He trusts that he does better when I'm there to support him. and he truly loves me. He actually licked my face.
That is love.
Because and dad goes, that means a lot. And so, you know, when the children are hanging on you, hugging
They
you,
love you.
and you're doing you because guess what? Apraxia is a very hands-on physical in their face type of therapy, and it's not sit at a table, here's a worksheet,
Drill.
say this word 5 times. Color the picture or put a stamp on it and be done. It's really not. And I think that's hard for school-based SLPs because their time is limited and their resources are limited and they've got all these kids, but it is on the floor, physical. We're going to get as many repetitions that are functional as possible. So, you know, one of the things that he and I were doing is I had magnetiles, and he was actually sitting at the table this time, but I had magnetiles and I was giving the magnetile and he'd slide it off the table and he'd put it down on the floor, and one of our target words was down. And so every time he threw it on the floor, and he would say down, or we'd say it together simultaneously. Should we try that?
Yeah, let's do
ready,
it.
Ready? Watch me.
Down.
Nice.
Yeah,
that was very
that's-
nice production.
I've gotten this down.
Good job,
Thank
Sarah.
You. Thank
I
you.
know. We've been working hard.
Great therapist, Jennie.
Thank you. And so, you know, he would giggle and giggle, but, you know, we were playing. I have another little girl. Oh, poor mom. She's like, I was like, I'm so sorry I'm sending your daughter home doing this. But we were working on Go Away. Tiny little girl. She's just 2. And we were working on Go Away. And I'd give her an animal and I'd make the animal sound and I'd give it to her. And then I'd throw it across the therapy room. I'd say, go away. And she would giggle. And, oh, she's throwing her toys now.
But is she saying go away?
She is.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. That's
No,
success.
but here's the thing. Schools, I think, have their kind of norms, I think, for teachers and students where there has to be a little bit of boundary. But
Yeah,
kids,
that's the
no
hard
matter
part.
what, I mean, you can do that in one-on-one therapy.
You can do it.
Yeah, you can do that in a
Absolutely,
school
we could do
setting. I think the biggest thing is what the biggest pushback that you might get from a listener right now is, I have no time for one-on-one therapy. And here's the thing. You probably won't have many students in your lifetime that truly
True.
need one-on-one therapy. But if you do, I think you might be able to find a few times in your schedule that you can find 10 minutes, 15 minutes to provide the student the therapy they need. They don't need it one-on-one for
That
an
is
hour
our job.
every
That
day.
is an individualized
Right.
treatment
But it's
plan.
also, it can be 10, 15
Right.
minutes. And if you've got a list of 10 target words and you can get through 3 of those
Right.
target words and get 30 productions of each
Right.
word in this silly repetition. Heck, I had let a kid bind me up with blue painter's tape last week. I was totally bound. And, you know, guess what? He's got the word tape down because, you know, we worked on it over and over and over and over and over again, but he was having fun while he was doing it, and it was meaningful, and it was one-on-one.
And kids, what they will pick up from all of this, again, no matter if you're in a clinic or a school or even like a home setting or whatever, they know rapport. They know if you're genuinely interested in them. They know when you care about them. I know, like, even I had one family that I worked with in the home setting where one of the siblings drew me in a family picture.
That's
because I
awesome.
was there every week and she knew that I was an important part of their family. Like, they know that.
They know
So it
if they can
doesn't
trust
matter.
you.
Right. That trust and that rapport and that
Critically important.
that is such an important piece. This is not a scientific field that is about, people are people, and people are all about rapport. And you can use the science piece to be that detective to find out the techniques and treatments and things that have the evidence behind them to do the best for these people. But it really is. It's about the people.
Nobody works with someone they don't like.
No. Think about as adults.
Right.
I
First
don't
and
want to work
foremost.
with people I don't like.
Yeah.
Like an
Critically
intrusive schwa.
I was going back to the stop. I'm really sensitive. No, I'm not. I don't actually care. But go back to that where you were trying to talking about the 3 words, 30 productions of the word. This was a huge point I learned. 100% accuracy.
Yeah, you
We
wanted
can't say with a student with a child with apraxia, we accept 80%.
No.
Yeah, explain why.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
awesome.
because what you practice is what you learn in
Because this is motor
apraxia
planning.
because it's motor planning. So what you practice is what you learn. So my goal is to get 100% accuracy. If a word is on that child's target list, then that has to be an obtainable goal. Woo! Blah, blah, blah. Obtainable goal. So if that word on there is by, that child should have the B sound and the I sound in their repertoire, but they just can't motor plan them together. So we're going to work on putting those lips together, and we're going to work on that movement of I, the mouth open, and then the smile back for that I, the I sound, right? Together. So all three of those sound together. So bye is kind of three sounds.
Right.
Bye, right? And so we are going to work on that movement. So if you go back to kind of the DTTC model, you do it in that simultaneous production, you do it together, and the kid has it, and you start varying your prosody so that they can start hearing that you want it to be different. Bye, 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 right? We're going to vary our prosody, and then we're going to back off a little bit, because our goal is what? Not to have them say it simultaneously with us all the time. Our goal is to have them say it spontaneously by themselves. So we're going to back off. Bye.
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 Make a mistake. Bye.
Bye.
Make a mistake.
Oh, I thought on prosody. Are we not
No.
working on prosody?
Yeah, we are.
Look,
But
see?
I
You
don't
said bye. I said bye.
No, I want you to make a mistake in
Say bow.
your movement. Bye.
Bo.
Nice. We're going to go back and say it together. Do it with me.
Bye.
Yep, we say it together. So then it's this backtrack. So I'm going to go back and give you the most support. So the second I hear you make a mistake, I'm going to add more cueing to help support you get it
then fade it back
100%. And we're going to get it 100%, 100%, 100%.
Okay.
Fade, fade, fade. How far can we go? All right, great. Let's work on, we're going to start at that level next
So-
time. And if I need to add in more support, I will.
That was really powerful just now. So the point of that was, if I had done that correctly, if I said it 4 times correctly, you're fading, fading, fading. I say it incorrect, you're supporting, 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 till I get it correct again, then fading, fading, fading.
I thought one of the
Okay.
interesting
Okay.
things we
Climb
learned
up and
too.
down a ladder.
Okay.
I thought one of the interesting things we learned too is that just because students have certain core words independently, like maybe they have bye bye and maybe they have go, but they don't have the motor planning to put go bye bye together.
Absolutely.
So you have to teach the motor planning for that.
Yeah.
So it's
pivot.
not language
We learned
related
about pivot.
technically, it's that the motor planning for that.
Yes, those pivot words and phrases. So combining the words they have with the pivot phrases they have. Then we're going to start combining those.
Yeah, so
Okay.
like I have a little girl, her dog's name is Bo. And so we use Bo as a pivot word. And so we like left that Bo word there. And we did no Bo. So she already has no. She already has go. She has my. So we're going to leave Bo there. And then we're going to vary our prosody. No Bo. My Bo. Go Bo. And so then we just, Bo, no. So then we can
So good.
Bo, go. So then you can put Bo first, you can put Bo second, and we're adding other words that she has and we're combining those together and because we're working on that motor movement planning or that sequencing of motor movement between those core words. And so it's
Mind blown.
mind blown.
Mind blown emoji, insert here.
Yeah. It's so good. Seriously, we could talk about this forever. You've got some speaking engagements coming up.
do.
You're out and about sharing your knowledge with the world.
I'm excited. Yeah, it's
Good.
great.
Everyone needs you.
You also have, and I know we kind of touched upon this a little bit, but you have some speech sound cues that you've developed.
Correct.
So if
Yes.
people want to check out more about some of the resources you've created, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. You guys can go to bjormspeech.com. You can purchase the cues from there. I also have a YouTube channel, which is called Bjorm Speech. And I post videos on there, various videos of different things, usually treatment strategies or ideas. And then I also have a newsletter. So if you go to bjormspeech.com, you can sign up for the newsletter there. And I try to send a newsletter out every week with some Q-tips.
It's a
for
fun one.
cueing.
I love
I'm
your newsletter.
obsessed with your newsletter.
Thank you.
You kill it in the newsletter game because here's the deal. I am bombarded by email. And so most of the time it's like delete, delete, delete. I open yours every single time you send it because it's always visually very cute. I love how you changed the theme of it. But also really great practical tips very quickly. You do a very nice job with that.
Thank you.
And I love your Instagram.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've got an Instagram too. And I try to be funny. I think I'm funny.
You're funny.
Thank you.
We wouldn't have brought you out here if you weren't. We just really enjoy Jennie and we know her. And the reason we wanted to work on this project with
Because we
her in
need it.
particular is because she is very practical and
Yes.
real and gets to the point of things. And we didn't talk about theory for 17 hours before we got into the meat of it. You know, you give the why, but then you get right to it in a very practical way. We saw that in Summit, and so we knew you were going to be the right person to be able to help bring this into the hands of all of these SLPs that really, really need it.
Thanks, ladies.
Yeah, you're a real treat, and we've had fun with
Thank you.
Are we getting the questions now? I'm
we
really
are.
excited
We
about
are.
this.
I threw it out on Instagram in our story that you guys could ask questions for Jennie, and there's some real treats in here that are interspersed, but of course also some practical questions too. So here we go. Are we ready?
Yeah.
What kind of goals do you write with your cue cards? So the cue cards that you created. Mm-hmm. What would be the goals that you would write?
Well, the cue cards are not necessarily a program. They're a queuing set. So I
It's a
don't.
treatment.
This is
That's
a
a treatment
It's
strategy.
a treatment
Right.
strategy.
That's not a goal.
It's not a goal. So you know, I use them for all of my goals. So my, you know, that if kids need visual cueing, or even if kids need verbal cueing, my kids that already know all the cues, if they already know Mad Cat is then I don't even have to show them the Mad Cat. I said, we're working on the word fun. You've got to start out with biting your lip. It's your Mad Cat sound. Fun. So I can use my cues as visuals. I can put them together to show them the combinations. I can put them together and show them when they're segmenting. I can take the visual cues away and just use a verbal cue because they already know all the visual cues. I can use the visual cues combined with letters to help them with sound to letter correspondence. I can use the cues out on the table and say, show me which one begins the word C, and they have to put the snake sound out of a field of 4. So I'm using my cues for all kinds of things. I'm using them for sound to letter correspondence. I'm using them for phonemic awareness. I'm using them for cueing. Blending. Absolutely.
But it's a treatment strategy.
Yes.
It's not a goal.
So the goal would be maybe at the very early stages something like improve motor movement of a CVC word.
Or yes. Mhm.
That's
Right.
the goal.
Yes.
But then I'm going to use those the cue cards to treat that.
Yeah. And then our whole
Support it,
goal
I
is
should
like what
say,
we
to
fade it
said
out.
is to get down that ladder, fade it out so we don't have to use any cues
Yeah.
so that they're using that spontaneously.
If you haven't seen her cue cards, by the way, they're freaking adorable. Like the illustrations are great, but they're so practical. You gave a really concrete, memorable cue to each sound. And the kids have fun with them. I use them with my phonological process students. They're fantastic.
Thanks.
Okay, here's the next question. This one's really good. This is about, it's broken up into a few different parts, so I'll just kind of summarize what he was asking. But students with cognitive impairments that also have apraxia, what's the outlook for that? Like, I imagine that they're going to make progress, but maybe...
You kind of touched upon this a little bit earlier.
I did. I touched upon it a little bit earlier. You know, it's different for each individual student because how severe their cognitive impairment is, what is the comorbidity of the things that are going on, how motivated the child is, how many times a week you're seeing them, how involved the family is, you know, all those different things. Is there a lot of prosody going on? Is there a lot of segmenting going on? What's their sound repertoire? And there's so many questions to ask, but I go back to is the great thing is we do know how to treat apraxia of speech. And if you're treating
treatment is
it,
the same.
the treatment is different. So if we're treating, the treatment's different from phonological.
That's what I mean, but the
Yes.
treatment
It's
is the
the same
same,
no matter if there's the
depending on-
comorbidity.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
working. Our main goal is movement. Our main goal is that motor planning, movement, sequencing plan.
Okay, and I will use this treatment with a student with autism, Down syndrome. It's all the same.
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. This was one of my personal favorite questions. What has it been like? This is real. You guys, I'm not making this question up, by the way. This is real. I have evidence. I'll show you proof if I need to. What has it been like hanging out with the Amy Poehler and Tina Fey of the SLP world?
Oh my God, that is fabulous.
I was like, S Billing 67, you're my new favorite person.
Oh
Yep.
my goodness, that is the hugest compliment
that
ever.
so
Are you
nice?
so excited?
I know. I was like, is that? We have been called
Who
the
am I?
We've been called the Batman and Robin. This is the way cooler. Amy Poehler
Yeah.
and Tina Fey. Thank you.
I know. Who am I? I can't wait to find out.
are you?
I don't know.
I don't know, but you're just in it. In this.
You know, I think
You're Will Ferrell. She ran naked through the quad last night.
Yeah. I will say, has this like lived up to your expectations? You had a list of things you wanted to accomplish when you were here.
Yeah, my list consisted of holding Penny, getting my picture taken in the hot box,
Slash confessional.
yeah, / confessional. I want to hold the chair in the face sign, which I haven't done yet, and then finally and last on my list, I wanted a picture with Lisa. And
That was last time. Oh, and roller skating.
oh yeah,
Roller skating was above
roller
us
skating.
too.
I haven't done that.
But
yet.
can you confirm for our audience that we actually do work?
Yeah, we've worked a lot, you guys. It's a really healthy mix of work and play.
Good.
And I believe that's how it needs to be. But you guys, it's so much fun. I've had a great week. And
Yay.
we've had a lot of time. Lots of great laughs, lots of really good education, and really awesome minds coming together to just kick ass.
Good. I'm so glad because,
Isn't that fun?
you know, so we met at ASHA last year at LA.
Yeah.
So, and just, I mean, briefly, like, we didn't go hang out or anything. We just met and would chat in the exhibit hall. And then you did Summit for us, and we've corresponded on things before. But this is like our first, like, time really all hanging out.
Yeah.
And,
Are you
and
okay?
collaborating.
Has it been okay?
It's been amazing.
It's been great.
It met my
Disappointed?
expectations. I hope it met yours.
It was worth your money.
Yes.
Did you see how I used the word it?
It was worth our
Because I
money.
have been an it, apparently. I was the it.
You were the it surprise, the special delivery, and it was absolutely worth it. I really do think this is game-changing stuff for any pediatric SLP.
I agree.
And so I think this collaboration is going to be very important for us with the assessment piece and progress monitoring, and you with the treatment. Do you want to talk a little bit about a future project?
I don't know about the future project.
Okay,
I mean,
okay. We won't spill
We've
it.
got a surprise
Okay.
future project coming, but it's a work in progress.
But it's
More info to come.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Dun,
You guys
dun,
follow Jennie so you can get
dun.
updates on that and stay tuned because it's gonna be kind of game changing. Not kind of, it is. Okay, next question. This question's highly suspect. Who does Jennie like better, Sarah or Lisa? Question mark. Never mind. It's clearly Lisa. I wonder who asked that question.
So, I mean, I think that's a fair question.
Whatever.
I think we know the answer.
That's like asking your mom what kid you like better.
Right.
I mean, that's not fair to me.
Right. It's not fair, Jennie.
No.
And you don't have to answer it. I already know.
It's clearly Lisa.
Whatever.
I have videoed you more and like hazed you a little bit more than Sarah.
We've swapped real stories on our
That's true.
ride to the hotel.
You have bonded because you have been, Lisa has been transportation.
Yeah.
She's my Uber.
She's
She
been my
is.
counselor.
Okay. That's okay. That's okay. I'm happy for you both. Whatever. Okay. This is a real question. What are some of your favorite reinforcers or toys?
Oh gosh. Blue tape.
I was gonna say. I love
Hands
you in
down,
the blue tape.
Kids love blue tape.
You write on your tables a lot with markers.
I do. I write on my tables a lot, like all of the time. So I love letting kids write on the tables because they're breaking the rules.
Yes.
I
love
break
that.
rules all of the time. We throw shit in
I
therapy.
love that you throw shit.
Not real shit, but like. But we throw stuff.
That would be distracting.
Oh, you know what? I almost always have animals in my therapy session. The little tubes animals, the miniature animals, because number one, kids love them. You can manipulate them. They're little. They all make sounds. You can make them make sounds. We work on them peeing. Psst.
I love that.
Like that?
That was one of my favorite examples when you were working on
The
blending the
pee-pole.
pee pole.
Oh yeah, I was teaching one of my kids how to say people, and he's older, and we were working really hard on people, and I'm like, I need a visual, so I drew on the table a guy peeing, and then I drew a pole next to him. I'm like, look, it's pee, like when you go pee pee pee, and this is a big tall pole he's gonna climb. Pee pole, and he got it. Pee pole.
See?
Pee.
Whatever it takes,
Big.
Whatever
honestly.
it takes. I have one kiddo. Mom videoed it and she shared it on her Facebook page. I don't remember what it was, but all I knew is I drew a toilet on my table and colored the water yellow.
Pee.
Pee. Functional word. We need
It's
it.
so functional. Poop,
Yep.
pee and poop. And you know what? If you can talk about pee, poop, and farts with kindergartners and preschoolers, they will trust you and love you forever.
That's so true.
That's so true.
And I love it because pretty much the few examples you just gave, this isn't, you don't have to go to Target. You don't got to spend $1 gazillion to do
No, you don't have to do anything. I really don't use worksheets because I'm a very functional based SLP. So, I love getting ideas from worksheets and then I incorporate them into a play based type therapy. I try to make apraxia therapy as functional as possible because what are kids going to carry over? If we are working on mama, dada, baby, baba, if we're working on family names, what do? I get 6 giraffes. I get 6 bears. I get 6 goats. And what do? We name them mama, baby, dada, nana, papa, baba. And then guess what we do? No baba, go baba, my baba, nai mama. And so,
good.
because
She puts the fun and functional.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, I mean, the kids, and then what are they going to do? They're going to go home and do those play scenarios. They're going to go home and use those in their functional setting. And I'm lucky and blessed enough to have parents in every single one of my therapy sessions. So I'm modeling for parents how to play with their children.
Huge.
And how to carry it over to everyday life. How to carry it over
huge.
all of the time. How they can use this. How a child can be empowered to tell his brothers, go away, no.
Right.
Because he's the littlest kid and he can't communicate, and the other 2 brothers are on top of him all of the time in his space, and then what does he do? Whine. Well, let's use our words that we have in our core vocabulary.
So good. It's so good. Okay, I think there was just a couple more questions. This is a great question. SLP Talk, Desiree, good question. Do you have any tips or tricks for collaborating between school and private therapists? So if you're working with the same child, this is huge. Do you know this is an issue for school-based SLPs? That relationship and working with private clinicians?
So I love this question because it's one of my favorite things to do is to collaborate with school-based SLPs. I've had many school-based SLPs in Kansas City actually come to my clinic and my therapy sessions to observe how I do therapy with kiddos. And for an SLP to have to be willing to step out of that comfort zone and come into my private practice and see what we're doing is awesome.
That's putting the student or the child first.
It's putting the student or the
Right.
child
You guys
first.
just
Putting egos aside.
Egos
This
aside.
is not about SLP shaming. This is
No.
about learning and
And
working
you know
together.
what? And I have been a school-based SLP. I did it for 4 years. So I understand where school-based SLPs are at. And I understand that they have to treat all these kids. And I am only treating apraxia. I don't treat fluency. I don't treat voice. I don't treat these other things. I don't do it. They know so much more than I do on a wide range. I may know a whole heck of a lot about apraxia itself, but I don't think I could step into the role of a school-based speech therapist and
so
be
you
successful
use
at
that
this point.
frame of mind
I
when you're
use that
working
frame
with
of
them
mind.
and don't judge.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you know what? If parents ask me to go to IEP meetings, the very first thing I make sure I do as a private practice therapist is really praise the speech therapist for what they are doing and find out how I could help support them in what they're doing for my kids with apraxia, or handing them over my list of target words and how we're working on them.
Can I tell you how important that step is from the side of you are modeling for the parents that you're affirming that what the school SLP is doing is important, because that is not how it goes all the time. Oftentimes what it is there's no communication between a school SLP and a clinic SLP, and that's why there is no visiting of clinic and in school, because there's no communication to start with. And then at those meetings it can be tense because you're getting, even the buy-in where the family does get that time with the clinic SLP. So there is a relationship there
yeah.
versus no relationship with the school SLP. So anything that the clinic-based SLP says, whether it be like, not everybody's going to be a rock star SLP just because they work in a clinic. There are rock stars, and they're in any setting. They're going to be rock stars or not, but it needs to be this whole continuum of we're all working towards
A goal.
of making this child
and have
communicate.
open communication.
Yes.
Come from a place of wanting to share what you do know.
I don't know more,
but not
I don't
shame.
know, right?
Yeah.
Or if I do know, like if there
And
is,
we
like you're
need to
clearly.
we also in the schools need to be
Right.
reaching out.
Clearly, if I am not an expert, and I know you are an expert in apraxia, and I can
Yes.
learn from you, by all means, I want to do that.
I
But-
need to pick up the phone and call you. And sometimes I make my own assumptions about the clinic SLP or what they think of me, and so I hesitate. Or hell, sometimes it just comes down to time. Like I just don't
I would say
prioritize
time's a
that.
huge
Yeah.
issue for school-based SLPs.
Yeah.
Huge issue.
So
Well, and
you
it's an
do
issue for me,
you
too.
do want to be working with the school-based
Well,
SLP.
it's going to benefit the family and the child. Absolutely. I think it's probably one of the most important things we can do. I don't ever want to step on toes, and I
Right.
don't ever want, I had a family come to me 2 weeks ago and say, "I'm so mad. The school offered my child 15 minutes 4 times a week of speech, but in a group with another child." I said, first of all, 15 minutes 4 times a week is rock solid.
Huge.
Awesome. It's huge. So she's in a classroom setting and they're doing some rotating, and mom's not real excited about that. And I think the child would benefit better, obviously, for one-on-one for 4 15-minute sessions a week. And mom's asked me to write a letter about, maybe research-based why it works better for children with apraxia, and I'm happy to do that. But I just want to make sure that how I do that is received positively, and not that I'm a person that's going against what they're doing, and also being respectful of their time and their resources and their caseload size and their methods. And
I had a director
hard.
that once told me, though, that if it shouldn't be about the school resources, so to speak, that if a student truly needs 15 minutes one-on-one, because again, that is not a typical, like most kids don't need one-on-one therapy. There will be kids that need that. And so if that's truly what the student needs, if that's what the data supports and shows and the research supports and shows, then it's up to the district to provide the resources. So if it's even like, if you have an SLP that's like, oh wait, I'm only at that school 2 days a week, I can't be there 4 days a week to provide 15-minute one-on-one therapy. That's not the SLP's problem, it's the district's problem. So there's some disconnect, I think, there too, where SLPs don't always have that support from their district, but there does have to be a little bit of advocacy too, of there has to be that communication up to the higher ups of,
Hey, this
Yeah.
is what the student needs to be successful. Here's how the data shows it.
I can do this. What
How
are
is
you
this
guys
gonna be
right?
met?
So you need to send
Yeah.
somebody for the 2 other days. I can do this. But again, we've talked about this. This has been the theme of this trip too, that don't just say I can't. Don't throw up those I can't flags. What can you do? What do you need to fill in? Provide some part of the solution.
Yep.
Right.
I can listen to problems all day long.
Right.
I don't want to.
Right.
Right.
If you've got a problem, bring me some solutions.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what can we do? What else?
can we do?
Yeah.
What can we do? What can we do? I don't want to hear the problem. I want to hear the solution.
I absolutely agree with you.
So I mean, yeah, and I think that we all have to come together and get off of our I'm the school SLP, or I'm the private SLP, or I'm the scientist, and all come together and work together and support each other through
Reach.
Yes.
research and through experience, and we're all here to help together. Not one person better than the other. Just because I've got more experience in one area. I think that's one reason I don't edit my videos when I present, is that I choose videos, and then when I say things or do things that I would otherwise tell therapists not to do, I don't take them out of my presentations, because I want them to see that just because I know what I know and I do what I do doesn't mean I always necessarily do it right, because
You make
I'm
mistakes.
human and I
You're
make mistakes.
human. And we'd
It's
like to see that.
It's like the parents that sit in the chair in my therapy room and they cry and they're like, "You're the best parent ever. I wish I was like you." I'm like, "Oh no, I threatened to sell my son." And they're like, "You did what?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's true. That happened."
I know. I had a family once that they wanted to hire me as their son's nanny, and I told my parents that, and they started dying laughing because, like, they see me as a parent.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, that's
They're
cute.
like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm much better on like these 1 hour doses. Apparently.
Exactly right.
Yeah, because it's
We
hard.
want to
It's
see
a hard
mistakes.
balance.
And that's why I think Lisa and I really try to be relatable. That's our goal. We want people to feel comfortable, and we want to talk about things that are tough and hard, and we like to throw ourselves under the bus because that's what people need.
That's real life.
That's real
life.
life.
We sometimes can put ourselves up on this pedestal, and somebody needs to kick it from underneath us because hard, just a swift kick to it, because that's not reality.
No,
and
it's
we
not.
are all learning and
All
doing
learning.
the best we can, and that's all we can ask for.
I think one of my favorite things is that when I went to boot camp, Sue Sperry stood up in front of the group and she says, I'm still learning. And this is Sue Sperry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. And, and she stood up there and said that. And I love that because we all are, no matter how much we know, no matter how much we don't know, we're all still learning. And we have to support and learn from each other.
Yes.
How we have to
I
do it.
honestly don't think we could end this on a better note. I think that was the perfect summary of this entire episode. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you here. I
Thanks.
really do think that this is such a needed conversation to be had. So thank you for being willing to come in here with us. You never know what you're going to get.
My personal takeaway is Jennie likes me better.
That actually was never said.
Really,
My personal takeaway is that you like pickles
Yeah.
and yeast rolls.
and yeast rolls.
Yeah.
And Sarah
Is an intrusive schwa.
She's very intrusive.
Yeah.
She takes pictures of us when we don't know it and videos us when we don't know it
I
and
do.
posts videos of me missing the golf ball. And
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah,
That's my
so-
role here at Toolkit. I'm the documenter, and even with this podcast, like I'm not editing this shit, so it's going out the way it is. All right, there we go.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Later, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for listening, for listeners.
Bye, you guys.